Why Italy is suddenly declaring war on immigration. Imagine standing in the heart of Rome, gazing at the Colosseum, a symbol of Italy's rich history. Yet today, the echoes of ancient gladiators are overshadowed by a modern battle, one that involves borders, policies, and the very essence of Italy's identity. This isn't a scene from a dystopian novel, it's Italy's current reality. In 2025, Italy has taken unprecedented steps, declaring a figurative war on immigration. But why? What has led this nation, known for its art, cuisine, and culture, to adopt such stringent measures? Let's delve into the complexities of Italy's immigration policies and the multifaceted reasons behind this significant shift. A surge in migrant arrivals. In January 2025 alone, Italy saw over 3,000 arrivals, an eye-watering 136% spike from the same month in 2024. The vast majority are crossing the Mediterranean in unstable boats, often launched from Libyan shores. These aren't just statistics. They're families, teenagers, and unaccompanied children, including 221 minors in a single month. Italy's coastal towns are overwhelmed, and its migrant reception facilities are buckling under pressure. Political leaders are calling it unsustainable, and the media isn't far behind. Critics argue that Italy's infrastructure wasn't built to handle these volumes, but the flows keep coming. The fear isn't just humanitarian, it's logistical, cultural, and increasingly political. Italians are asking who decides who stays and who pays the price. The Albanian repatriation. To stem the tide, Italy turned to an unlikely ally, Albania. A 2023 agreement would send rejected asylum seekers to Albanian camps for processing and deportation. The idea? Remove them from Italian soil, fast-track rejections, and outsource detention to a non-EU partner. But courts quickly slammed the brakes. Judges ruled that fast-track deportations violate international law and put migrants in unsafe conditions. Critics call it a loophole around EU protections. Defenders say it's just common sense. Albania, eager for closer EU ties, plays along. Despite the controversy, the strategy speaks volumes. Italy wants to be tough, efficient, and deterrent-focused. But the legal and ethical red flags are hard to ignore, and pressure is mounting on Rome to rethink its playbook. The Cutro II Law. The Cutro II Law, named after a deadly shipwreck off Italy's coast, pushes Italy's immigration crackdown to new extremes. It lets authorities house teenagers over 16 in adult migrant centers and use X-rays or bone tests to verify age. Controversial science at best. The law also allows authorities to deport those caught lying about being underage. Critics call it cruel and pseudo-scientific, especially toward vulnerable minors. Yet for Italy's government, it's about weeding out false claims and controlling who enters. The law reflects rising impatience with chaotic border crossings and the belief that the system is being gamed. But is targeting kids really the solution, or just a dangerous overcorrection? Civil society is sounding alarms, and human rights groups are watching closely. Expansion of work visas. In a surprising twist, Italy isn't closing its doors entirely, it's just picking who gets in. In 2025, the government raised its work visa quota to 165,000 with an extra 10,000 for caregivers. The reason? Italy's aging population and labor shortage, especially in agriculture, tourism, and elderly care. But here's the catch. Applicants from high-risk countries like Pakistan and Sri Lanka now face stricter screening. Italy wants workers, but only vetted, skilled, and documentation-ready ones. It's a dual message. Don't come illegally. Apply the right way, and we might let you in. This isn't generosity, it's demographic survival, cloaked in control. Still, critics worry it creates a two-tier system, favoring economics over ethics, and leaves the most desperate behind. The role of international agreements. Italy's fight against irregular migration is now globalized, with foreign policy taking center stage. Deals with Libya and Tunisia aim to stop boats before they leave African shores, essentially externalizing Europe's borders. In exchange, Italy sends funds, equipment, and political support to these regimes. But these countries have patchy human rights records and little accountability. Are they safe havens or just convenient partners? Italy says these agreements are practical necessities. NGOs argue they outsource cruelty. It's a game of optics and enforcement. Italy looks tough, migrants are pushed further away, and Europe avoids direct confrontation. But what happens when control trumps compassion? The cracks in this approach are beginning to show, and not everyone is convinced it's sustainable. Public sentiment and political landscape, public opinion is shifting fast, and politicians are riding the wave. Right-wing parties like Brothers of Italy and Lega Nord frame immigration as a threat to culture, jobs, and national security. Fear sells, and images of crowded boats fuel political narratives. In small towns, resentment simmers over strained services, housing competition, and crime perception. For many Italians, immigration feels less like an opportunity and more like a burden. The media amplifies this sentiment, often without nuance. Politicians respond with harsher rhetoric, chasing votes and feeding feedback loops. The result? A hardened national stance that's more about politics than people. But can this populist pressure really lead to long-term solutions or just more polarization? Economic implication. Italy's economy needs migrants, but not just any migrants. Seasonal workers prop up agriculture, foreign caregivers support the elderly, and immigrants drive service sectors in cities. But irregular migration adds strain. Unregistered workers mean lost taxes, undercut wages, and overburden welfare systems. Businesses want cheap labor, the public wants strict borders. The state is caught in between, balancing economic reality with political image. Cracking down on irregular migration could mean labor shortages and rising prices, yet relaxing controls risks further backlash. It's an economic paradox. Immigration is both Italy's problem and its solution. But can Italy afford to politicize labor when its economy depends on it so heavily? Human rights concerns. International watchdogs are sounding alarms, and for good reason. Detaining minors in adult centers, shipping migrants to Albania, and fast-track deportations all raise serious ethical questions. Italy, a founding EU member, is increasingly seen as breaching the Union's own legal and moral framework. Human rights organizations warn that Italy's policies violate asylum conventions and put vulnerable people at risk. The government dismisses these criticisms as elitist and disconnected from reality. But the optics are damning, and lawsuits are piling up. Is Italy protecting its borders or eroding its principles? In the rush to deter migrants, it risks losing something deeper. It's standing as a champion of human dignity and European value. Legal challenges and EU relations. Italy's aggressive policies aren't just controversial, they're legally shaky. Several high-pressure cases are making their way through Italian and EU courts, challenging the legality of migrant transfers and detention practices. The European Court of Justice is monitoring the Albania agreement closely, and any ruling against it could send shockwaves through EU policy. Meanwhile, Italy's actions are fueling tensions with Brussels, threatening unity in the already fragile bloc. Can Italy chart its own course while still honoring EU laws? The legal battles will set precedents not just for Italy, but for the entire continent. At stake is the balance between sovereignty and solidarity, a defining issue for the EU's future. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to stay updated on the world's most pressing stories. Share this with someone who needs to understand what's really happening in Europe today.